before you even get your license. You can have up to half of your supervision in group. You can, you may. It's not required. There are people who have all of their supervision individual, but not everybody does that. It's a little bit easier to do group. And the folks that I've worked with have said that they really like group because they hear from lots of different perspectives. So when you're a counselor in residence, you actually put that you're a resident in counseling. And I'm saying this too because there are, one of the first jobs that counselors might get before your license is as a QMHP. Anybody have heard of a QMHP? Qualified Mental Health Provider. Some insurances will cover QMHPs. And you may, your agency may require that you sign something as a QMHP, but if you are working toward your license, you have to sign things resident in counseling. You may also be a QMHP, but you have to sign it resident in counseling.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that even if you're not, if that's not pertaining to like what you're actually doing for your residency?
So technically, the kind of job that you're doing, I mean, you have, when you register your supervision, you're registering basically your job. So your job needs to be.
For example, if when you register and you're working like at an outpatient
Right.
Facility, and you're working like a part-time job as an in-home clinician.
Right. Both of those places you need to indicate that you're a resident in counseling.
So you do? Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you're using both the hours, you have to indicate that you're a resident
But if you're
in counseling.
not, like say your regular job, like your part-time job is just a part-time job.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the.
If it doesn't have anything to do with counseling, you don't need to. But if it has
Okay.
anything to do with counseling, you need to put that you're a resident in counseling.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about the identity, that's about the full disclosure for clients too.
Okay.
So supervisors have to have training and supervision, and the board says that it's either 20 CEUs or a course in supervision. Let's see here. So be mindful of the people who provide supervision to you. Make sure that there's somebody who's not so related that their objectivity would be compromised. There actually have been cases of spouses providing supervision or other family members. Not a good idea. The supervisor assumes full responsibility. I've mentioned that. Fills out forms. There are quarterly evaluations that a supervisor fills out, as well as the final verification of supervision. That's that total hours of residencies. Quarterly evaluations. The exam for counseling is the last thing that you complete. And you have to have approval for that. So there's this whole process you submit. Once you're finished with your hours, you submit the paperwork to take the exam. And I say this because that's not true for psychology. It's not true for social work. They take their exam before they take, actually not true, it's true for social work. But psychology, they take their exam before they do their residency or they do their internship even. So for counselors, you take your exam last. And you'll, if people ask, it's going to be good for you to know this, right? To know that there's a comparison, there's some differences between psychology and social work and counseling. For Virginia, it's the equivalent. It is not exactly. It is the equivalent of the National Clinical Mental Health Counselor's Exam. There are a lot of states that use the National Certified Counselor Exam. Virginia does not. It uses this Clinical Mental Health Counselor's Exam. And I'll tell you, it's not like any other exam you've ever taken. I promise you that. It's clinically oriented, case study oriented, and you must follow directions. So make sure you get a study guide. The one that I suggest is counselingexam.com. And then, oh, by the way, once you're finished with your licensure, you're not finished. You have to document 20 hours of ongoing continuing education once you've got it. So this is going to cost you. This is actually listed in the application from an initial application fee of, let's see here, what's the initial application fee is about $140. And then you register a supervisor, which is $25 per supervisor. And then you pay every year to continue to be licensed, which is not so bad. All right. I love to be a resource. So I passed around one of my extra large business cards. So I'm very proud of these. They're actually, this is new. This is a new practice title for me, Integrative Counseling and Wellness. But I like being a resource. You're welcome to call me if you have questions about this process, about job search. For clients, for anybody who calls, I offer a free 10-minute phone consultation. So if you make sure to leave a phone number or, and your name, so I'll call you back. I don't have a receptionist. I don't have a secretary, so I rely on people leaving phone messages. I will assume if you don't leave a message that it was a wrong number. Although I realize that maybe I should stop assuming that, because a lot of people don't leave messages these days. So that's my my office cell, and I gave you my email address too. You're welcome to get in touch with me either way. Any questions? Comments? What do you think? Are you scared?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a question. So I'm graduating in 6 months, and I've kind of already started looking around at jobs and seeing what's out there and stuff. And I see a lot that they're like, minimum requirement is a bachelor's degree. Now, is that something I should like actually look at applying for? Because I have a master's degree. So
I know, and that's the nature of this area,
okay.
and the nature of counseling too. So this area, because of the saturation with, the positions will be listed with a minimum of a bachelor's degree. So you're competing with people who have a bachelor's degree, but you have a leg up. And I would make sure that in your application, in your resume, in your cover letter, you really talk about why your master's degree makes you a better candidate for whatever positions you're applying for.
So they're not going to look at it as like an overqualified, like, well, you've got your master's, so.
Well, they might, but can I tell you about a job that I applied for? This is years ago now. This is something that anybody here during after Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah.
Sandy? No, it wasn't Katrina. It was something like Isabel. Isabel. That's how I met Susan.
Yeah, I just remember that.
Yeah.
You.
I forgot about that.
Me too.
I was in private practice solely at that point. And as you might imagine, if you were in this area, you knew that people were without power, people were without all kinds of amenities, and I didn't have electricity for a week. There are other people who didn't have it for longer than that. And, you know, that means that clients who were worried about roof over your head, so remember that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? People are worried about a roof over their head because they were still doing that. They're not going to come to counseling. So in my private practice, clients stopped coming in. And private practice is not a salaried position. Like if I don't work, people don't come in, I don't get paid. So somebody told me about a position that was with the city of Chesapeake. And I submitted my application for this position. It was a minimum requirement of I don't even remember what it was at that point, but it was not a doctorate. I didn't get a call back. So I'm like, I need a job. So I called, because of course that information was in there, and I got the director. And he fortunately had my resume handy, and he's like, well, you know, you got a doctorate. I think you're overqualified. I didn't expect that answer, but what I said was, you know what, yeah, I probably am. And I think probably what you need at this point is somebody who is able to jump and run, someone who is able to have a quick assessment of things that are going on, who's able to pull people together. And here are my experiences related to those three things. Where did that come from? Well, that was my figuring out what they probably needed. Now, they had somebody in mind for that position. They had somebody in mind. And this will happen in lots of different places. But you know what? I was hired because I told them what they needed. And I told them I had what they needed. So similar in terms of the other kinds of positions. What do you have that they need? And you got to sell what you have.
I know, I'm horrible at that.
Well, yeah, I know we're not good at it because we're in this helping profession where we're supposed to be focusing on other people, and you got to know what you have to offer. Yes.
Since you have been in the field for almost 30 years or so.
Oh my gosh.
That's great. I mean, it's great that you've been in this field and we can learn from you, and I appreciate you coming in today. I was wondering with a master's degree, I mean,
Yes.
I was in the military as a second career.
Mhm.
I've never been in corporate America, and I'm curious as far as, we have master's degrees, so as far as salary or money, how much do you market yourself to earn with a master's degree?
In counseling. It's not just a master's degree. It's a master's degree in counseling. So if you had a master's degree in accounting, that's a whole other salary set of requirements. Do you hear that? So, and here's where I start to get mad about our profession. I get mad because it's a feminized profession. And the reason I get mad about that is that our salaries are flatter. There is a tremendous need for counselors. And because it's a feminized profession, people out there, that's the big, everybody out there, they say, well, women, you know what, you're a second salary earner, so you don't have to make as much. Or those agencies that employ counselors are public agencies that just don't pay as much anyway. So what's the range that you might make in this area? Anywhere from low 25 to up to about 40,000. I know, I look at the look on your face.
25
Oh my.
for a master's.
I know.
How would you ever pay for
So
this?
let's go back to supply and demand. We are also going back to supply and demand, right? We said already, this area is saturated with counselors. It's also saturated with military retirees who already have, who already have some kind of income and are willing to potentially take less in order to have a job. It's not a judgment, it's just what is. So just know that. That's part of the research for you all to do. If you haven't researched what the typical salaries are for this profession that you're getting into, please do so. And again, I started out saying, if you want to get a job, you might consider moving to a place that is growing and isn't as saturated. Yeah.
So when you say moving, you mean after you get all this done?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to finish
You
this,
can't,
right?
you can't go to another state. And
Oh, you're talking about the licensure?
yes.
Well, you can. You can start licensure in another state.
Move after you graduate.
Move after you graduate. Yes. Move after you
Okay,
graduate.
that's
Thank
it.
you. Right. Yeah, make sure you graduate first. Yeah.
What if, say you are in a military type situation?
Sorry.
Okay,
Just
so-
say, somebody I know.
I am retired, but I'm also married to active duty, so
Sure.
if I'm in the middle of residency and getting my license and then he has to go somewhere else, can't do any of that, any of those hours at all. I know I can check with their board, but if any of those hours would count towards theirs, or do I have to start all over